The management of waste in a traditional Greek household is a far cry from the idealistic views that are presented by the EU. Spatial disparities are reflected through the different attitudes and practices of waste management in varying scales. Waste management and disposal have been a constant problem for Greece during the last 30 years and have been highlighted subsequent to its acceptance in the European Union. As a member state, it is compelled to meet certain standards in the waste disposal in terms of how, where, and how much is recycled. The EU directive requires 50% of municipal waste and 70% of construction waste to be recycled by 2020. A waste hierarchy is included in the directive, with the process of reuse being the initiative that all member states should aspire to, whilst disposal being the least sustainable option. Currently, Greece as a nation disposes of 90% of its waste in landfill sites, considerably more than any other country within the EU. 70% of these are uncontrolled by authorities, and there are over 1,000 that are illegal altogether. Greece is 15 years behind the most advanced EU countries in waste management terms and has one of the poorest records in environmental policy. The country is also one of the worst performers in recycling terms and has been condemned by the European Court of Justice for failing to comply with the requirements of European waste management law, including a fine of €4.72 million for improper sanitation of landfill sites. At a national level, the absence of organised infrastructure and waste management facilities, poorly drafted and administrable processes, and a lack of understanding of what is needed across all regions of Greece have led to environmental strategies being more or less ignored by policymakers of recent years. Despite idealistic targets being published by the EU, its stance on the vital importance of sustainable waste management has not trickled down to a regional and local level within the country, although national authorities appear to understand what needs to be done. National statistics do show a relative improvement on recent years, but whether or not that is true at all spatial scales remains to be seen. The lack of actual execution of waste management policy by the government has meant there is little incentive for Greeks to recycle or take waste management particularly seriously. As mentioned previously, the majority of municipal waste is disposed as landfill, and is rarely collected by the council. More often than not, it is taken by the individual direct to the landfill sites, hence the frequent illegality of these. The reoccurrence of these visits varies from season to season, and also with the motivation of any individual. It is quite clear here why there is such a problem with waste disposal. As long as waste does not collect outside the house or establishment, it is unlikely that an individual is going to go out of their way to dispose of household waste, especially if there is no incentive to do so, or punishment if it is not disposed of correctly. At a local level, waste disposal does not appear to be an issue for the cyber community of Kourosvakian, as it is not raised on the Slovakia forum. Little information exists on the village's waste facilities on the internet, however. However, that is not to say that there may be existing problems in reality, and interviewing residents and visitors might reveal hugely varying attitudes, awareness, and practice. The landscape of waste will be shaped through the everyday practices of each single household and business. Different situations will influence individuals' decisions on how to deal with waste. Perhaps the traditional attitude to waste is different to that of the EU's. Most probably. The problem is that the sheer amount of municipal waste has vastly increased, while cultural trends have not changed. Industrial waste is often the focus of government policy, yet the education on sustainable waste management seems to be non-existent at a local and household level. Traditionally, little would have been wasted in a small fishing village, but with the onset of tourism, much larger numbers of people and therefore waste has been created in Slovakia. The attitude towards it has not changed, but the situation has. As discovered from an inquiry on the Slovakia forum, There is no recycling initiative in the village itself, and no separation of waste materials. It appears rubbish from the village is taken to nearby landfill sites. The EU regulations are idealistic, but not realistic for rural villages such as Slovakia. Do the EU regulations take into account recent increases in tourism, creating seasonal variations in waste in the village? National statistics may not reflect the seasonal population difference. Changes that have occurred in the temporal scale, such as influx of tourists, modernisation, and consumer capitalism, have not, at a local level, concurred with the changes that have transpired in waste management and the subsequent implications of these issues. In a sense, the detached guidelines presented by the EU have little relevance on the daily lives of those living in Slovakia. There are great variations in attitudes and perceptions towards waste management, from the EU level right down to the individual household. In essence, education is the only way to improve sustainability in waste management, and improvements in sustainability of waste will only be improved through knowledge and understanding of the problem.